now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Zach Chavalella and our special, very, very special guest. So special, it happens once a year, Liam Jenkins.
I had to end 2024 right, you know. I had to make sure we start off on the right foot for next year. But no, happy to be here on a rogue. Was it Friday, Thursday, Saturday meet? I don't know what day it is anymore. But we're here. The Eagles exist just about, and I can't wait to talk about them.
It's a day in the week, and I feel like that's all that matters because we know we are in a day in the week. But yeah, happy holidays to everybody out there. Happy holidays to you gentlemen as well. Zach, how was your holiday festivities? Which, you know what, I have a bone to pick with you.
Are we starting this early, man?
We are starting this like this.
Are we getting into this early?
I sent you a text message on Christmas Eve, and you have yet to respond back to me.
Well, if it on Christmas Eve.
Yes, look at that.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry that I did not follow. There's actually a lot of one-sided text from you at the liquor store, picking your drink and then drinking your drink, and I apologize for not responding. But yes. For those who want to know, Brian did in fact try the long drink, as many faithful Flipping the Birds watchers will know of, Miles Teller's own signature gin drink. And Brian, first, there it is now, making an appearance. What are the early results from your palate?
It's amazing. It's very refreshing. I'm
It's
not gonna
pretty
lie.
good, right?
It is
That's all
really
I'm
good.
saying.
Like, you don't taste the alcohol. It just tastes very just tastes refreshing. That's the best way to put it.
Refreshing as a fresca, man. It's perfect. It is honestly, it's my new favorite cocktail. So I have to get more because I burned my way through the sample they sent me. So time to refill, you know.
I hear that. How was your holiday, Liam?
Yo, sorry, hang on, my Mac's being awkward. What was that?
How was your holiday?
It's been busy. It has been.
Is he slowly getting lower in the frame?
Yeah.
Is
Well,
that...
the issue I've got is that I'm not properly moved in yet. So for those obviously that have been watching the show a little while, had to take a bit of a hiatus from streaming due to a house move. So all I've got set up in the office is the Mac, and the desk that I've got has one of those bars at the end that's higher. So on the Mac, the webcam's built in, which is right at the very top of the screen. So not only is the computer higher, but now the webcam eye level is like I'm some Joel Embiid-esque level giant. So it makes me look like I'm 5'3", which look, I'm absolutely fine with that. But it's a 6'3" gangly man. It's humiliating, and I'm not a fan. But the holidays were good, and just very busy with the house moves. This is my first stream since the move, and as you can see, the office is very well decorated. We've got all of the trophies that the Cowboys have won since I've been born behind me. They're on full display. And yeah, hoping to stock those up with maybe a couple of Eagles Super Bowls, maybe an MVP at the end of the year. We get some replicas in there. But yeah, holidays were good. Just very, very busy with the house move. So very tired. A little bit of man flu setting in now, I think. I'm already on the hot lemon, and the voice sounds like I'm at puberty. So every cloud has a silver lining.
Well, speaking of silver lining, Kenny Pickett is starting once again for the Eagles this weekend. Jalen Hurts is still in concussion protocol. And to be fair, the last time Jalen was injured and missed games, the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. The last time Carson Wentz was heavily injured, the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. Terrell Owens injured, Eagles went to the Super Bowl. I feel like there's a trend there somehow, some way. But on a scale of 1 through 10, what's your confidence level going into this game? And not only Kenny Pickett, but and Zach's cousin, Nick Sirianni, as well.
Oh, yeah. Big love.
I mean, for me, it's like a 6 or a 7 because it depends how you view the contest. Are we talking confident about the Dallas game overall, or just the whole fact that, it could be, 1-2 weeks of Pickett, but then next week doesn't really matter anyway? So, like, realistically...
Does next week not matter? Like, if they lose this week, like...
Yeah, but... I don't know. It's really weird because like, a lot of people are very anti Kenny Pickett, which I completely get. I mean, and to top up that comment, I'd bump it 0.4. Let's get a little bit freaky on a Friday night after the holidays. But I'm a big Tanner McKee guy. Or I've been waving the Tanner banner since he first arrived in Philadelphia. I would not want someone that has not played a single NFL regular season snap of play in that game. And as much as people slag off Kenny Pickett, I missed, luckily, the raw emotion of the Commanders game because I wasn't able to view it. Watched it back a few days ago. And I think the main consensus is that the refs weren't exactly brilliant. There was a lot there that went a bit tits up. And especially late in that game, a lot of what Kenny Pickett did well was eventually undone by just sheer horrendous officiating. Like, a lot of what I've seen on Twitter with the reaction between Pickett and McKee has been, but McKee in preseason is more aggressive, fantastic. Tanner McKee is someone in that moment thinking to prove himself in every aspect of his game. Look how far I can throw it. Look how hard. Look how I can do this. It's very much an exhibition if he does get released to catch on to another team. So in the same way with threes and the undrafted guys, they all put on masterclasses because for them it has to be this like, Tavon Austin-esque music audition tape for the rest of the NFL to see. When Kenny Pickett's in preseason play, having already put on, 3 years worth of Steelers footage to his name at this point, it's a guy that is, all right, 2 minutes to go, Jalen's out, manage the game. Keep the ball short, move the sticks, show us what you can do. And it's boring and it's sloppy and it sucks and no one likes watching it. And then you realize in the deep of the action, when the trenches get a bit deeper and the tensions rise, you look at the game against Washington, when the Eagles played that well and generated that many turnovers and Pickett was that weirdly efficient and Barkley was that good. If you did that against all 30 other NFL teams, there are you would lose to. I don't think that if you were to take the exact stats of that game and say, all right, they went up against the Raiders, the Broncos, whoever, and say, all right, who won that game? If you just go stat for stat, you're not going to say the other team. I think Kenny Pickett did everything that he needed to do in that game. He's had starting experience, the NFL wins, and it's while I understand the push for Kenny Pickett, for Tanner McKee is someone again that has been his biggest super fan since week one. I'm just really, I don't want in a game that is important against Dallas to secure the NFC East, to secure that potential 1 seed. You don't want a rookie in there. Pickett will get the job done because he can manage a game. That's all you need him to do. I don't need the bells and whistles. I don't need the deep shots. I just want Kenny Pickett to be boring, bland, to sit at a table and talk about a 401k while everyone else is talking about the excitement. Just keep it simple and boring and screens and keep possession. You've got Saquon Barkley, deliver it. I don't think there's any reason for me to be concerned. I just think people are expecting Kenny Pickett to go out there and play like Jalen Hurts or to some similar level, and he's just not. He's Kenny Pickett for a reason. He's always been Kenny Pickett. He always will be Kenny Pickett. But if you can take the sporadicness out of it and just keep him on the narrow path, put the blinkers on, they'll be fine. And I can't see them losing this game. So, yeah, I agree with the previous comment. 6.5 to 7 on the confidence scale. But as far as Kenny goes, I'm not worried about him. I just think people are very much wanting to see a starting level performance from a backup quarterback. And you don't get that very often. I'd much rather see a backup level performance from a backup quarterback that isn't trying to punch so far above his weight limit to make a point. You know who you are, you know what you've got to do, you've got all the weapons around you, just keep the ball, bring it home, get out of there with a win and never talk about that game again. It will be the most boring game ever. Just get the win and we can all move on and pretend it never happened and then we can talk about the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I to echo kind of a similar sentiment in terms of the quarterback situation and as it relates to this game, Kenny Pickett, I don't think anyone would confuse for Patrick Mahomes, right? First and foremost, obviously, what I will say in Pickett's defense, the things that he didn't have in Pittsburgh, this level of offensive line play, this type of running back in the backfield, these types of receivers. So he had half decent receivers at the time. At his best, having Johnson and Pickett, but I would say both Johnson and Pickett are worse than Devontae Smith, who is the wide receiver 2 in this offense. So I say that to say, I think Kenny Pickett's going to be fine in the regular season. Is this something that I think is going to bleed over to the postseason? No, even though Brian kind of scarily alluded to the possibility, just referencing the similarity to Wentz. I don't think any of us think that Jalen is going to miss postseason time with this concussion, and if he does, obviously there's things to worry about. But until that news comes forward, I think we're fine with Kenny Pickett. And again, the reason why is because of what surrounds him. Having Saquon Barkley, having this offensive line, having AJ Brown, who he already has a fantastic. We saw that connection just this past Sunday, and the reason that the Eagles lost the game wasn't because of Kenny Pickett. Like, did Kenny Pickett set the world on fire? No, absolutely not. He was a serviceable game manager. He struggled at times. The problem was that the defense allowed far too many points, and obviously Devontae Smith dropped that pass that 99 times out of 100 he would have had. So you can't put that on Kenny. That's a tougher opponent last week than you're facing this week. I feel pretty confident that we're going to see another repeat in terms of, all right, yeah, there's clear flaws with this offense, but he's taking what the defense gives him. It's going to be a little bit more dink and dunk than we've seen, a little less of that big play, unless you're getting a big play out of Saquon in the backfield. And I think that's going to be enough for Philly to take this game, especially Dallas. They're losing players left and right defensively. Dak Prescott's obviously gone for the season. CeeDee Lamb's now done for the season. Like, this Cowboys team is not good. They weren't good when healthy. So to now be, and I'm, famous last words, I know, but to be in this position where the defense is going to be hungry to punch back after last week, and you have an offense that, aside from the quarterback, which is obviously an important position, is healthy, I think everything is going to sail pretty smoothly this Sunday against the Cowboys.
I'm proud of you guys. I'm very proud of you guys for being so confident in everything that's going on right now. And while, yes, Kenny Pickett was not the reason the Eagles lost, I have one fear. And that fear comes in the visor. And I don't know, like,
are we doing this again? Are we doing this again?
I'm just skeptical because if it's Nick, like,
we had 1.5 weeks.
I'm trying to say this very, very intellectually and
didn't actively shit on him. And now you're back on.
I'm not shitting on him. I'm just saying I don't have the utmost confidence in Nick coming out and putting a game plan together that makes a lot of sense. Now, it may not make a lot of sense to us, may make a ton of sense to him, right? But we didn't see a lot of Saquon when Kenny was in the game. Like, in the runs that we saw, the schemes of the runs was very bland. It wasn't creative at all. They weren't putting Saquon in space. They were just they were playing Madden, and they were allowing the playbook to do its own thing. It wasn't creative. It wasn't like a well thought out plan. I get it. Jalen came out of nowhere, but it was the first quarter that Jalen was out. We didn't see much production out of the offense after that. I was impressed with how Kenny was actually hitting AJ Brown, hitting Devontae. He was doing things good in the pocket, in my opinion. But I'm still a little wary of Nick Sirianni putting the right game plans together, knowing that Jalen is not there. That's my only fear.
So my immediate two thoughts to that would be, number one, how much of that do you think then falls on Jalen Hurts being the one calling audibles at the line and kind of calling the shots? Because I know we've seen a long backlog now of whether it's the pass protection at center this season, whether it was Jalen calling audibles last year when questions were raised. And then the other aspect of it, I guess, naturally, is how much of it is maybe the Eagles just trying to be a bit more conservative with Barkley, knowing the season he's had, knowing the endurance he's already been put through. Like, you want to keep him fresh for the playoffs. Like, this game, as important as it was, and they could have sealed the 1 seed and kept this streak alive, like, it wasn't the be-all, end-all. Like, you're without Jalen. Like, let's not try and get too cute and maybe run Saquon into the ground and risk an even bigger issue, which would be losing the best running back in football before you get to the playoffs. I don't know. I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I wonder, like, if maybe a mix of those two definitely contributed to that, because I think Jalen's control over the offense is something that doesn't ever get enough love. Because I agree, like, in regards to Sirianni, I don't think you'll find a head coach ever in the NFL that has been this successful yet consistently has this much question marks over his head. Like, that's a bizarre combination. You're either like Dan Campbell level loved, or it hits up somewhere else. Like, it's very rare that you get someone that sustains success and constantly makes the playoffs and gets to a Super Bowl, has all the pieces, and then is yet flamed on a bi-weekly basis. Definitely a part of that there. I just also wonder if maybe Jalen being out, the offense doesn't have that extra cherry on top, because Kenny doesn't have that same, I guess, like, familiarity with the guys, and he knows like his preferences are different to Jalen's. And then also, like, is Saquon just being pulled back a little bit and said, look, we need you for January, we need you for these playoff games. Like, let's just. So, but then again, having said that, they could have easily put Gainwell in. You know, they could have easily done that instead and been a bit more proficient with the run game. So I don't know. Again, I mean, that then would be a Sirianni criticism, in which case I'm fully on your side anyway. So
I think that's my only fear. Like, we've seen progress out of this offense, right? We've seen Jalen. Like, you see the void left by Jalen, and the guy is a good quarterback. The team goes where he goes at the end of the day. Forget the criticism he's received from everybody outside of PSN. But the fact of the matter is, like, common sense isn't that common at times with the coaching staff, whether it's Nick, whether it's Kellen. Like, I know that Kenny Pickett is a pro-level quarterback. He's able to do pro-level things, pro-level passes, right? But at the same time, he's not a guy that you will ever mention in the likes of Josh Allen, or Pat Mahomes, or Lamar Jackson. So I would expect them to be conservative and to not get cute. But at the same time, how many times have we seen Nick Sirianni get cute in the wrong moments? That's my only fear going into this game. And, whether they do Kenny Gainwell, Lou Nichols, I'm perfectly fine with them, resting Saquon, and Saquon kind of just not going for the record. I mean, Eric Dickerson doesn't want Saquon going for the record to begin with. But it's just, that's my only fear. It's like one of those moments where, like, is Nick going to shoot himself in the foot, or is he going to come out and show, like, hey, I'm this successful for a reason, and he finally just lays it all out on the table, and people just had to shut the hell up. I'm perfectly fine with eating crow on that.
You would finally have to shut the hell up. Just to be clear,
I'm just being honest. Like, I don't want to be so biased where it's like, yeah, they're gonna go in there like Gladiator, and they're gonna rip the Cowboys apart.
First of all, your other bias is clearly showing in the same argument. So it's not a matter of not wanting to be biased. It's about not wanting to be a homer, and that's fine. That's good enough. I mean, we're talking about the division winners, or with one more win / Commanders loss, the division winners going up against a bleeding and mostly dead Dallas Cowboys team, right? So again, any given Sunday, I fully get that. However, like, I don't think it's necessarily the best way that we should put this. When we talk about the Commanders game, I would say Sirianni's biggest fault was over relying on the defense, right? Which, it's kind of hard to blame him, because they had the number one defense for the entire year.
Yeah, but the offense gassed the defense. I mean, they were always on the field. That was the huge issue.
That was part of the issue, right? But it wasn't the entire issue. I mean, guys were flat out missing assignments. I mean, Kenyon Mitchell on that one route Terry McLaurin caught a touchdown on, like that. That's not a energy thing. I mean, that's just losing your man.
Mm-hmm.
So Sirianni over relying on the defense, not worrying about time of possession. I get that. I think that's a fair criticism, but I don't think that at the same time that's a reason why they may lose this game against Dallas, simply because, like,
I'm not saying they're going to lose. I'm just saying I don't want them to. They shouldn't stumble as much as I believe they may, just out the gate.
What does that?
My issue, here's what I'm thinking, right? What's going to happen is this game is going to be a game, and when it shouldn't be. If we're being completely honest, the Dallas Cowboys are decimated in every level of the field. They're just missing the bodies that they need. And this shouldn't be a game where it's like Dallas is within reach of taking this game away from Philly. And I feel like the only way that would happen is if Philly just shoots himself in the foot and they overthink everything, which happens a lot. It's happened a lot this season.
Yeah, I mean, I won't deny and say it hasn't happened, but I think it happens to a lot of teams, especially in a situation where they, lose their starting quarterback. So, one of the things that I would criticize Sirianni on is that it looked like he tried to get Kenny going when Kenny got in there, whereas, kind of as you alluded, I would have leaned back on the run. So I think that's where you kind of have to get started in this game, and it's a little bit different because you don't have Kenny, entering in the middle of the game. You have him there from the start, but again, like the passing offense has not been your strength this entire season.
Mm-hmm.
And I get, what happened 2 games ago. We can talk about that all we want, but the run has been the strength of this Eagles offense for the entire season. And I think Kenny Gainwell's actually done a very good job, especially as of late, contributing to that running game. So
Especially in
you
the
don't
past.
necessarily, yeah. Well, you don't. That's what I'm saying. You don't need to, utilize Saquon in 95+% of your run snaps. But if you're going to approach this game with the same mentality of like, all right, well, let's try to get Kenny going quick, I think that's where you start to lose me. Is that there is no let's get Kenny going. Like you might be able to work him into a bit of a rhythm as the game progresses, but there's not going to be, hey, let's get him out. Let's get 3 quick dink and dunks in a row and, get a couple first downs out of it. That's just not good business. Like you got to know what you have. So help out Kenny by establishing that run a little bit more early on. And part of the difficulty is as soon as Jalen Hurts goes out, Washington stacks the box, right? So at that point you have to throw. And what your adjustment may have to be in that case is a lot of AJ Brown snaps in the slot. And again, working that kind of safety valve for a guy like Kenny Pickett. But your game plan going into it should not be, hey, let's get Kenny warm, let's get him going, let's get him comfortable. It should be, let's get this running game going to kind of open things up for Kenny a little bit, so then he can build his comfort later on in the game. Because you're going to need to get him comfortable at some point. But if you try and get him going from the, right from the jump, it's not going to happen.
I think there is a risk though, and I mean, like, I think a good line is what Mini Draco said there about the passing yards being like 172.5, which I think is too low. But the main concern I've got kind of in relation to that is that Dallas quietly over the last month has actually been kind of okay. Like, we thought they'd all be just dead in the water by now, they'd be blown out every single week, but did all right against the Commanders. Obviously, I know the Giants are much to beat. They hung around against the Commanders prior to that. They stuck around against the Bengals, I think, for a point. It's just one of those things where it's like, if you don't get Pickett going, I say not going, like I'm not expecting to do play action rollouts and then all this other fancy stuff, like, but at least get into a rhythm where instead of maybe going run on first down, run on second, pass on third, which if that falls incomplete, the confidence isn't there. Maybe then they start running more and Pickett just kind of becomes a cog and a lot less of like the key cog. And not that he is, you're still the quarterback. Like your quarterback's still the main point of the team. And if you're then trying to actively not give the ball to your quarterback to pass through the air, like teams are going to do the opposite of start the box. You also kind of invite it, and you do the inverse of like Zach accurately said. You lose Jalen, you stat the box because you know Saquon's coming. If you know that Kenny Pickett is not going to pass, it's the same thing. And I think, like, realistically, it's still a rivalry game. Dallas are going to have a sour taste in their mouth from the earlier point in the season. They're not a lethal team. They're not going to be one that is killing you, but they're averaging like 26 points a game over their last 3, which is only like 1.5 behind the Eagles, I think, from memory. So like they're not terrible offensively. And we know the Eagles defense, as good as it's been, has had the occasional blunder, as we've seen recently. So there has to be some level of like trusting Pickett. And I think that's probably the better terminology. It's not necessarily attacking with Pickett and getting him heated up and into a rhythm, but just trusting him with certain throws. Like if it's 2nd and 12, just throw it. Just don't be cute and try and run it with Saquon. Don't run him into the ground. Like just get him to a point where he feels like, all right, they believe me, I believe in them, we got this, and we can just go and play ball. And like just keep it simple for him. But I think you're right. If you run that risk of being overly cute, overthinking it, and you're running it on like 2nd and 9, then it's 3rd and 7, and you pass and it's incomplete, and then next time you run it on 3rd and long, stuff like that, or the habits where you're not taking field goals, like they'll be the things that bite them because they're just being too cute and trying to be too protective. There's still got to be an element, I think, of at least just trusting your guy. Like at the end of the day, he's still the quarterback of the team, like it or not. And I think for that reason, and the fact that Dallas is still a beaten up team, I would, in relation to Mini Draco's comment, I'd say like 200 yards, I would say, is what I kind of be expecting here from Pickett. He might only complete 6 passes, but he'll be over 200 yards. I'm fine with that. Like, it'll be fine.
So I think we're on agreement where just don't get cute with the game plan. Just be as efficient as possible. Play to your strengths. That's always been my issue with Nick and his approach to it. Now, whether it's him or Kellen, we'll never know the truth. But Nick is the head coach and he's the face of that staff. Defensively, though, are you guys concerned about what we saw last week going into not only this game but going into the playoff stretch? Nakobe Dean is doubtful. Like you mentioned before, guys were just missing tackles, missing assignments, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson was ejected over the most questionable offense I've ever seen in my life. I hate talking about the Commanders game just because the referees were just out of line on every aspect of the field, and you could feel the agenda happening. How do you guys feel about the defense going into the stretch?
Yeah, I'm not particularly worried. When we talk about this game, first and foremost, again, CeeDee Lamb is done for the season. So just to focus quickly on this game, he was averaging 100 yards over those last 3 games for Dallas. That's a major weapon gone. One more gone for Dallas. So obviously, I think a guy like, and this is probably going to sound ridiculous, but Rico Dowdle's a guy I think that you can't underestimate. I think that he does have some talent in there. So, you don't want to necessarily, just say there's nobody on this Cowboys offense who can hurt the Eagles. But when you're looking around, like, all right, well, kind of who else is there? There's Zeke, Jalen Tolbert. What are we thinking? I think the bigger thing is you have to focus up more on special teams than how the Eagles played this past week, especially because that's been a strength of the Cowboys as of late. But defensively, I'm feeling pretty confident, especially because I know that a lot of these guys, they're going to be motivated for that bounce back performance. Now, when you talk a bit more long term and you start going, towards end of the season, postseason, stuff like that, health is obviously going to be major. Linebacker's not a deep spot, so to have a guy like Nakobe, be on the injury report is not thrilling. It's not enticing. I am excited to see potentially what Jeremiah Trotter Jr. has if he gets a little bit of a shake there on Kelly Green Day, especially. I think that's just kind of a beautiful moment to see him in the Kelly Greens. I don't know, man. I gotta tell you, I feel like there's still a bit building with a lot of these players. Guys like Jalen Carter still getting better game by game. Even with this performance against the Commanders, there was a lot of stuff that just doesn't happen in that game against the Commanders. From CJ getting ejected for a reason that we still don't have explained.
We don't even have video of it either.
There's just video of him, effectively getting kicked out, and nothing that he had done to warrant that. So
and the previous video of him getting slapped and getting the personal fouls.
It's the second most egregious ejection that's happened to Philadelphia in this past week. So it's something where I think that we're going to be looking at a bit more of a normative week for the defense. I think it's going to kind of instill a bit more confidence in everybody just to kind of see them again. Again, Kenyon biting on I don't know if it was a double move. I didn't see the route beforehand that when Terry McLaurin got wide open, but that's something that doesn't happen. I mean, that's a cheap, easy 7 points right there. So I feel pretty confident in this group still. There's a lot of young parts, a lot of guys who have improved as the season has gone on. Guys like Jordan Davis has gotten better. Milton Williams has continued to get better. Jalen Carter, as I said. So it's really about maintaining health at this point, because that was the other thing is that, when we saw Josh Sweat come out of the game, that also started to be kind of the tides of things against Washington as well. So just maintain health as best you can. But I do think this is going to be an opportunity for the defense to, again, instill some confidence in some folks.
There's a returning piece as well that nobody's mentioned. I mean, not that anybody's happy about it, but Bryce Huff is questionable for the game. Just want to put that out there.
I thought you were going to say Darius Slay, and I was going to leave the room, so I was just, yeah.
Well, Bryce Huff has also been questionable this entire season, so I didn't really feel a lot of favor.
Not more questionable than James Bradbury, who nobody knows if he's alive still.
Yeah, I was gonna say that man, his existence is doubtful at this point. It's
I don't think there's going to be some Netflix spin-off of just like a year in the life of James Bradbury. And it turns out he's just gone paragliding one week, and then he's just doing groceries the next, and he's on vacation.
I do kind of hope he's just living his best life, you know.
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah,
like,
I'm happy
he's
for him.
certainly getting paid enough, you know. Just like enjoy this time, enjoy the lack of stress on your body, and yeah, have a good season, man. You know.
No, I will say, as much as he was a liability and he's had a weird trend of getting a big payday and then falling off horrifically, cornerbacks typically are a position just filled with ego. And I think, again, having spoke to a few of the bigger ones, a few of the smaller ones in between, along the way, you just get some strange characters because you have to be at the top of your game. James Bradbury to be, earning the money he was twice and then fumble it twice, the most unproblematic corner vocally I think I've ever seen in my life. I've never heard a single bad word said about anything that he said or done outside of what he does between the white lines, which is questionable all the time. But as a person and away from that, never a word. Darius Slay can breathe and you will get Twitter reactions. James Bradbury is just sat there playing NBA 2K with his friends, chilling out, not caring about the world. And I have a lot of love for him for that. Fair play to James for just being, he is the definition of the chill guy meme. Just, it doesn't matter if he doesn't get started. He's just a chill guy, That doesn't matter. They want me to move to safety, but that's okay. I'm just a chill guy.
Oh, you want me to move safety? Nah, my leg hurts, so coach.
Yeah, it's all right. Sorry, I'll just go on into reserve for a bit. Don't worry about it. I'm just chill.
I'm very curious as to what he's doing right now because I have not seen him around after games or anything, or even on the sidelines at all.
Probably watching this show, and I hope he understands. That's what I reckon he's doing.
Flipping the Bradbury.
Yeah, flipping the Bradbury. But just to get to your point, I guess, with the defense, I think that there's a lot that from that Commanders game, like you said, that just isn't going to happen in any others. And I wonder how much of it is when you look at the state of that defense. How many of those players have been in the league under 3 years? Carter, Davis, Dean, obviously I know he's injured, but DeJean, Mitchell, Zach Bourne, it's his first year as a starter. He had a rogue one, in terms of a game. Reed Blankenship is still very young. I know he had a very up and down game. There was all sorts in there. It catered for every audience, both the lovers and the haters. And I think that's the first time I've ever seen a game where visible stress just built over time. And I think when you start to get that compounding of okay, this hasn't gone our way, the refs have missed this, what, they just booted CJ out for what? Oh, now Jalen's getting into it with this guy, and what is and it just, you're not focused on the immediate job in front of you of right, it's first down, this is the motion, whatever. It's you're just so built up. And it happens, we can all agree, right? We all have situations in life, be it work or family, where there's something on your mind and you're not quite focused because you're angry at someone's wound you up. And then you accidentally, I don't know, call a customer a knobhead or something like that. It happens. So, I think I think for a young defense, that's probably part of the growing pains. I would be surprised if we see anything close to the, I guess, inverted commas, sloppiness that we saw against Washington. Because I think a lot of it was just, you could just see, man, it was just festering frustration that things weren't going their way and they weren't doing a lot wrong. I think especially the first half of that game, they were, I felt pretty solid when you look at the production that especially the guys like Reed had early. And then all of a sudden it's a switch flicks and then guys are being pinged out. Jalen Carter ends up in shouting matches. You've got guys missing tackles left and right. And it just becomes this car crash. And it's not it's just one player, just the whole thing. And yeah, I think realistically that's so much of a, what do you even do from a coaching perspective, right? It's where do you even start with that you can't not address it and that can't not get fixed. It's that, it's so alien compared to the 4, 5, 6 games before that it's that's very easily the anomaly, and that's easily correctable. So I'm not worried about the defense moving forward for this week at least.
That's fair. Another part of the roster that's been questionable, and I don't have much of a take on it, just because I feel like they've been a strength of ours for the last 2 seasons. So to see them kind of out of pocket, to say the least, during the last 2 games, special teams has been a bit of a concern. Against I'm sorry, against the Commanders, they kind of showed it where they weren't doing their best efforts. It just seemed all around the roster like it wasn't clicking for anybody the moment after Jalen Hurts left the game.
Yeah, I think special teams in Philly have just been this weird thing. Ever since like the Dave Phipp era. Like one year they're really good, then they're really bad, and then even last year Britton Covey was a breakout star, then he gets injured. And, it doesn't matter now because now we've got Cooper DeJean, but we don't want him there because he's a safety or corner. We don't want him getting injured. And like there have been games where even a couple of weeks ago, like Jalix Hunt was making, I think he made like 2 or 3 special teams plays. It was 3 weeks ago. I can't remember. It might have even been the Commanders last time they played, to be honest. But it was unbelievable. And I was like, I've not seen or been this excited about Eagles special teams in a while. And then to watch last week's again, and also, not to put it on that, but a lot of those special teams contributors are guys from the defense and younger guys, and like, again, under the radar. If that is just festering and they're on a sideline where everyone's pissed off and the coaches are screaming and everyone's wound up, and then they've got to go run 60 yards to track a punt that they can't do because the rules are different. And then it's just like one minor mistake turned into another minor. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that also bled over into it, to be honest. But yeah, I'm not immediately concerned with, special teams. Like, we're past Cameron Johnston and, the whole punting woes that we had following the... Yeah, that I didn't want to name him. I just did not want his name leaving my mouth. I've just about got over Cameron Johnston at this point, like near enough. Taylor Swift comes on, I still cry a little bit. But when you look at, last year's special teams concerns compared to this year's, like, I'm not like, it doesn't faze me. I think the team's too strong to be looking at special teams thinking that's a real glaring weak. The only one will be Jake Elliott. And I think the issue with Jake Elliott is that he's almost like a mortalized kicker where he's almost guaranteed in everyone's heads to make every kick from 67 yards. And like the second he misses one, it's, oh my God, Jake Elliott's fell off. We've overpaid him. We need to cut him now. And it's like, when greatness happens again and again and again and again, it just gets taken for granted because that becomes the norm. And you see it in basketball. I mean, Zach can attest to it. How many guys like LeBron is probably the best one. He does it for that long, or even in football with a Tom Brady, and then they make one bad game, one bad season, and it's, they fell off, they're washed, and then everything's fine 6 weeks later. So, I think realistically, special teams are fine. At least not a glaring cause for concern for me at the minute.
Okay. And then so we kind of discussed, a little bit of our concerns, right? So heading into the Dallas matchup, what are some key players to watch coming up in the game? Who you guys kind of focus on offensively and defensively?
Yeah, I mean, for the Eagles, I think first and foremost, obviously, kind of has to be Kenny Pickett. Just that he shows that confidence that you need in a quarterback. It's kind of tough to come in mid-game and have that confidence. It's a bit easier when you're starting off the game, from the jump in that spot. So, hopefully that's able to help him out quite a bit. But there's going to be nobody who's going to be more scrutinized, well, except for maybe Nick Sirianni. But on that field this Sunday than Kenny Pickett. I mean, that's going to be the guy who, everyone's going to point to if Philadelphia does lose this game. Like, oh, well, they wouldn't have lost if Jalen was in or this or that. It's going to be probably a tough game either way for Kenny. So if he is able to show some level of confidence from the jump, I think it's going to go a long way for him.
Yeah, I think I'd probably start defensively. Like, I think after Quinion Mitchell's first real bump in the road that we've seen, which was, if I'm honest, like, I would put it on more of a mental lapse than anything else. Like, they're corners get beat. It happens a lot. And I think what separates the great ones from the elite ones are the guys that can just get up and go again and like have that one play mentality and leave it behind them.
Jalen Mills.
Yeah. He definitely didn't have that. And I think with Quinion, I think what he's done so well is just continue to ride that wave of confidence. And he plays, like, you see him, chirp players and he'll go over and get in people's faces. And he has this just aura about him. And that's the first time, especially after what he did to McLaurin in the first game they played, where he didn't even allow a single reception. to allow that might have felt a little bit like, it's just the first time you get punched in a boxing match. Like, everyone's got a plan so they get punched in the mouth. Apparently, I wouldn't know. But that's the same. So I think to a point, all right, well, now we get to see not the real Quignon, but I think to a point of like, now he's hit something, he's maybe been humbled a bit, and someone's actually got one on him, and that's now on tape. And you're like, all right, well, now this week, you've got a much easier matchup. Like, you're not going to have too much to worry about outside of, a rogue Rico Dowdle running wherever, like a prime Michael Gallup for 10 minutes. But, like, there isn't too much to be concerned. Get back on track, leave it behind you. And if you can just do that, then that is, to me, this is like one of the most important games of Mitchell's career so far, because you're coming off of a rocky week. And you're now going to see, all right, well, which one's the fluky one? Are we going to see someone then get lost in his head like we see so many young corners do? Or is he mature enough to hit the ground running? Has he got the support system of guys like Slay around him? He's been a mentor, been a veteran, been in that situation, and can tell him the right things to keep his head on track. So that's what I'm genuinely intrigued to see. Is like, I know it's going to be like a preseason affair for him, which is probably perfect after that play. And I know it was only one play, but I think that's important. It's just get Quignon back on track. And, that was just a rogue play. It happens. He's still an incredible young corner. And I think offensively, I've been genuinely very impressed with Cam Jurgens the last couple of weeks. I wasn't a big fan early on in the season. I thought he was struggling quite a lot. Even a few weeks ago, I think it was, I can't pin the game, it's too late, and my eyes are everyone like swooping. But we broke it down on stream, and he was just missing assignments everywhere in terms of pass blocking. And Jalen Hurts had no time to throw. It was all looking very miserable. Like, Jurgens was just out of his depth. He just looked really out of his depth in pass protection. And I want to say the last 2 weeks, as sporadic as things have been, he's been one of the better players on the field. And some of the outlandish blocks he's made and the athleticism he's been flashing, it's almost like they've just taken some of the reins off and gone, all right, we'll just be a bit more free. If you want to do this, do that. Or like, I don't know what they've done or what they've said to him, but there is almost like a freedom that he is now playing with, where he's not stuck and like torn between two players and then allows them to both get around him, where he doesn't go over here and go, oh no, it's actually this one, and then bail that. Like, there's just almost a relaxation in his play. So especially when you've got a backup quarterback, that relationship with your center has got to be better than ever. So I want to see if Cam Jurgens can sustain that and keep his good play up. And I think if Pickett has a good day at the office, Cam Jurgens might be a big reason why. So there we go, a bit of a rogue one.
I think I'm going with AJ Brown. Which is, it's an obvious start, right? If Jalen's out the game, then they need AJ Brown to step up. But I'm looking at AJ Brown more from a leadership standpoint, was kind of like making the game easier for Kenny Pickett and kind of taking that Malcolm Jenkins approach, where when Jim Schwartz was overloading the defensive players with all these schemes and these play calls, Malcolm Jenkins just asked them to simplify it, and they came out to half and actually locked down on defense. I'm kind of expecting that approach from AJ Brown, where he comes out and says, let's make Kenny's life a little easier. Let's, short, slant routes, short passes, just keeping it that way. He's not, and just him saying like he's not Jalen at the end of the day. It would be great to see that kind of approach from AJ, just step from a leadership standpoint, which I know he has it in him. So I'm expecting him to lead the way significantly. Defensively, I want a bounce back game from Zach Bond, who's gotten a little bit quiet after last week's game. He lost Jaden Daniels several times on the QB scramble, which was a little disheartening, just because you've seen him on so many times. But we've expected him to be such a great linebacker throughout the weeks, throughout the season, because of what he's shown us. That to see him make these little mistakes was kind of again, a little disappointing and a little discouraging. But I'm expecting a big bounce back game from him. So for the Cowboys and Eagles, what's everybody's prediction going for Kelly Green Knight?
I think they're weird. I think it'll be tighter than people think. I think it can be like, I'm going to go 22-17. There'll be some dodgy 2-point conversion in there because Nick Sirianni's going to trust Pickett. Pickett's going to have a lovely play, and everyone's going to be like, wow, we did it. And then that's going to be that. I think the Cowboys will push him. I think the Eagles defense might end up struggling late. I think early they'll be fine. It could end up being, I could genuinely see it being 14-0 to the Eagles halftime. They win 22-17. And where they think they've got it, and then they really lax off, and then the Cowboys just get super annoyed and just turn Super Saiyan for about 10. So, I think the Eagles win. It shouldn't be too problematic, but it's a rivalry game. It's a backup quarterback, and look, if Jalen Hurts was here, it would just you wouldn't even need to think any predictions. Well, enjoy the show. Let Jalen do what he does. And I wonder, like, in a Dallas season where guys at this point in the year, there aren't playoffs on the line. Head coaches are, maybe looking at eye emojis, thinking, maybe next year. There's jobs on the line. You've got guys there that maybe will not be there in 12 months' time. They will be fighting for their jobs. They're fighting to make a point. There's no CD Lamb. It can go one of two ways. They'll either absolutely implode or they'll rally together because they know that this is now their start of. This is essentially preseason for them, like for the offseason. Like they have to prove their worth and get a spot secured. So I think it'll be tighter than we expect, but I think the Eagles win by like 5-6 points.
What do you think?
I got an odd one. I got a similar spread, but a bit of an odd score. Dallas, I don't really see them getting into the end zone in this game. I see them getting within field goal range. They have one hell of a kicker out there in Dallas. I think Philadelphia is able to see some level of offensive success, but not necessarily the level that I think we're used to seeing with Philadelphia, obviously, just with Kenny in there. So I think 23-15 Eagles.
I'm going low with this one. I feel like it's not going to. I kind of agree with Zach. Whereas I don't expect Dallas to score many touchdowns. With that being said, I would go with something about like of the sort, probably 17-6. Just because it's one of those games where you're facing a incompetent opponent, and you should be taking advantage of this. And I'm praying to God that Nick Sirianni does do things the right way and kind of just doesn't overthink it or get too cute. Yes, I see you, Zach. But offensively,
every single time, it's a very open backhand right across the face of the coach.
I'm just saying.
Just say you don't like him then. Just make
no,
it. No,
that's not true. Listen, that is not true.
Kind of sounds true.
I stuck up for
Sirianni
the Gardner. I have not stuck up for Sirianni the loudmouth who just got into the face with Zach Ertz after a game and God knows what they said to each other.
You're big time salty.
But
11-3, man. 11-3. Fifth best winning percentage among all-time coaches. Winning percentage among coaches active right now.
If he cannot get too cute in this game, I would give him all the flowers he deserves. Just don't get cute. Just keep it simple. It's like as Liam told me one time, Kiss, keep it simple, stupid. That's all it is. In this case, keep it simple, Sirianni.
And that's for free. I gave you that for free. Didn't even charge you. So
well, so we have the Eagles winning unanimously. It should be a celebration on Sunday where they clinched the NFC East. They clinched the number 2 seed as well. The focus, after this game should be just to everybody get healthy. I'm curious to see if Saquon kind of goes off for possibly $150 or more and gets closer to that record. But nonetheless, it should be a competitive game, and we should, be in for a good one. I do want to thank Liam for taking the time out to join us today.
No, my pleasure. I should be back streaming again from next week. I'm just about getting settled. It's just been a non-stop. Just everything's popping up. I feel like this is just me getting older now. Now I just have life problems. Whereas before, I just had PSN and I didn't really have a life. Whereas now I have a life. There are problems that come with having a life. And
it's called adulting.
Yeah, I didn't account for that, really, when I made it 10 years ago, that I'd get older and then life would change. So yeah, as soon as it gets set, I'll be locked in. But I appreciate you guys letting me gate crash and talk some birds before this weekend. But yeah, hopefully we're rewarded with a win and we can start the new year thinking about playoffs and all of those fun predictions then.
Yeah, definitely sounds good. But until next week, which we should be live. It's not a holiday on Tuesday, is it? Is it New Year's?
It's New Year's Eve, man.
Oh God. Okay, so
and I'm hosting, so it's
well, hosting
not you guys, obviously.
So Zach is hosting a Flipping the Birds all-nighter.
If Liam can get a cab, he's welcome to come over. But otherwise, no, I will not be hosting you guys.
We'll see you sometime next week.
To be determined.
It's to be determined at this point. Kind of like the Giants game. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, for joining us tonight. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Zach Chavalella and Liam Jenkins, and we're Flipping the Birds.
Go Birds.
Yes, sir.
I had to get mine in. Didn't think I had to do that.
Oh, it's happening again, isn't it? It's happening again. This happened.
Flipping the birds. Flipping the birds. Flipping the birds.